Recently, I've been playing F-Zero X for Nintendo 64. This is one of the most hardcore games I think Nintendo's ever made. It comes from a very interesting point of their history, the early 3D era, which is one that, even though it's not like perfect, it's one that I've grown to really appreciate over time for just how different it is from what came before and after it. The thing about Nintendo's early 3D games is that they kind of emphasize skill mastery in a bit more of a classic arcadey way at points. They're not afraid to kind of make the most use out of the new analog control stick technology to make it games that kind of require subtle inputs or, kind of analog gimmicks. It's hard to explain, but basically, like, nowadays, every system has an analog stick, but despite that, analog movement isn't exactly super popular, besides, applications like first-person shooters. Because if you think about it, like, say, like a 2D game like Super Mario Brothers, there's a binary state of a run button. You're always going to be pressing the stick full tilt. And even in other games, like, I don't know, 3D action games like Zelda or even Metroid Prime, there's basically no reason to not always be going at full tilt. But these N64 games, a lot of them kind of utilize the subtleties of analog movement for very precise control inputs. And it's very surprising to kind of go back to these kind of games, especially considering, F-Zero was basically replaced by Mario Kart, a traditional kind of like party game kind of thing. Very goofy, very accessible. There's never a reason not to be accelerating at full blast of Mario Kart, but F-Zero just requires this kind of finesse, this kind of extra degree of thought that makes the gameplay, the driving, so much more enriching, to the point that it doesn't need anything extraneous like power-ups or, there are course gimmicks, but nothing too crazy, It doesn't even need fancy graphics. And that's the thing about this game that is so fascinating to me. It's kind of the stripped back appearance of the whole thing. F-Zero X is a game that is gameplay first in a very traditional 2D sense. The graphics are simplified and polygonal. The draw distance is surprisingly good for Nintendo 64. It runs at 60 frames per second even when there are 4 players on screen, a feat that almost no, if any, other N64 game can live up to. It emphasizes the smoothness and tightness of its gameplay and the feel over everything. And if you play Mario Kart 64, you'll realize that that game is the opposite. It runs at 15 FPS. The gameplay is very simple. It's fun. It's goofy. It has some more fun. It has some more like silly flourishes in its graphics and design. But it really is more about the party experience. The gameplay alone doesn't hold up over time. At least in my opinion, for Mario Kart 64. It's just too sluggish to be fun nowadays. But F-Zero is not sluggish. It feels like lightning when you're playing it. And the skill curve of mastering the unique parts of the controls, like the different types of turns, like slide turns and blast turns, or I don't know, maybe that's not what it's called in this game, the finesse of leaning into turns, and just, the risk-reward of the boost meter, which is also your energy gauge, and the speed of it all, and just learning to master every course one by one. And it's just such an enriching experience. It's engrossing. It's incredibly fun, but it's also not, like, despite being so stripped back in its presentation, it's also like pulpy, it's brutal. There is characteristics to the gameplay that does make it feel like it's not just, some sort of tech demo. It has this kind of brutal meathead metal edge to it. The music is all metal tracks. The character designs are comic book inspired, and they're very dark, and you get to see them in the title screen, and like when you're choosing characters, and they're all so goofy, and there's so many little connections between them all, and they're all just so well designed and lovable. And there's like silly stuff, like goofy references to like Star Fox and a guy who's like a messed up version of Mario, Mr. EAD. And then there's like a car that has 2 guys in it that's just like this weird twin car with these weird crazy alien guys. There's mutants, there's robots, there's just kind of cool kaiju kind of anime character designs. It really just has, it has the charm and the personality, but it doesn't come at the cost of gameplay. It just enhances the feel of things because, to get back to the brutality, that, you know, there's multiple ways to kind of handle ascending in the race. It's not just about going the fastest. If you want, you can decide to try to kill your opponents, because that removes them from the rankings for that track. And there's literally a character, Black Bull, who has stats that are kind of equipped to doing that. It's kind of an encouraged idea. There's even a mode where your goal isn't to race, it's just to kill all 30 racers or all 29 other racers as fast as possible. And it's just so cool, like, that they're able to kind of lean into this kind of brutish angle. Normally I'm not one for combat systems in games, but this kind of extra layer really adds to things, especially considering the way that your energy meter works. The first lap, you know, it's just an energy meter, but after lap 2 and 3 it becomes boost power, so you can go faster at the cost of your health. In the first lap, I feel like you're kind of incentivized to see, okay, I have this extra health, maybe I can be a little more reckless, maybe I can try to edge out an advantage over time. And there's a risk and reward that comes with that, because if you're going at it trying to kill your opponents, you're probably going to be at the back of the pack, so you have a lot more to make up in the next rounds. But if you kill the right people, if you're smart about it, you can basically destroy your opponents. And over time, if you do this well enough, you don't need to get first place. You could get like 8th place a few times. It's all about winning at the right time and knowing when to, you know, choose offense and defense. It's very adaptive in that way. It's an emergent kind of gameplay style. And I've just been obsessed with this game. It's just been fantastic, the skill mastery of it all. And playing it on a CRT with the makes the feeling of the speed just feel all that more potent. It's this small little dim thing, you know, playing it at night. You know, there's no input lag because it's a CRT, or at least I think there isn't input lag. It looks amazing on this little screen despite the game being so simplistic graphically, and it's just such an engrossing experience. It's like nothing else exists. And being able to, you know, try and try again and slowly get better enough to beat the expert difficulty has just been so rewarding for me in a time where it feels like nothing else really is. Master mode is kind of like the last difficulty I have yet to face, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to beat it, honestly. I've thrown myself at it so many times. I've gotten 2nd and 3rd place overall a few times in the first cup, but even if I'm not able to ascend beyond where I am at this point, I'm kind of confident that eventually I will be able to. There is like kind of more tech to this game. There's different types of attacks. Like there's a side attack that some people use for positioning your vehicle, which I don't really, it's kind of hard for me to adapt to that kind of style, you know, like, though it's kind of awkward to do this side attack, and people use it instead of using the leaning for turns, because I guess it's faster. And also there's some weird tech about like going against walls at a certain angle to go faster that I don't really understand. There is more to this game that I feel like, more layers to peel back, but I feel like where I'm at is kind of like close to what the developers intended. And maybe you have to ascend beyond, maybe those aren't, maybe those other features are intentional. It's just maybe the positioning specifically, but it's just where it is right now. This is such a perfect game, and it's kind of beautiful that Nintendo made this. This is the time when Nintendo in-house developed way more of their own franchises, and getting this kind of game from them gives you the polish you'd expect and like the thoughtfulness of a Nintendo game, despite it being so much more difficult and at such a, you know, such a different place. It's not the kind of game that comes from them. It's kind of like Metroid, where this is a more advanced, mature-ish title that doesn't skimp on gameplay ideas. It still has the imagination, it still has the creativity. It just comes in a package that's not afraid to challenge you. And I guess where I'm at with video games, that's really means a lot to me. I have played F-Zero GX, and I feel like I will have that moment with that game at some point. That kind of real, you know, that moment where it clicks and it becomes something that, instead of I'm, you know, ramping up to understanding, it's something I can fully embrace. I know that game has a few different quirks with the way turns work. It's a little bit less offensive because the offense driven, because the courses are wider, which is interesting. Of course, everyone knows the story mode in that game's BS and very difficult. It definitely felt like I was getting like hard blocked in that game. Like there was stuff that like, it didn't feel more like I was, you know, because in this game I had everything unlocked because I had this game used for a long time. But like the F-Zero GX being on GameCube, I don't have saved it on my memory card already, or like I didn't have data, so like kind of building up, it was a lot more difficult. But and you know, it's a little derivative, and it doesn't have the same style. I mean, it has its own thing. It's very techno driven, and that is very cool. But it's just I have to get there. You know, like I think I've realized that I really just needed to finish this game and understand it and fully embrace it first, and that was a really important part of the process. So yeah. Oh, and then the last thing, then the other part of the Nintendo 64. I was about to finish the video, but I forgot to mention this. The other thing about the Nintendo 64 that was a huge kind of black eye for the system is the use of cartridges, because, you know, they are smaller, they're more expensive to produce, they're less efficient, and they have, you know, they have less space. I don't know if I said that. But the only positive is kind of like, oh, faster load times, and who cares about that, right? This game does. This game fully utilizes the speed of the load times. It takes 5 seconds, maybe 10 seconds, to restart a match. And that makes the trial and error so much less painful, because you can just, boom, you're just back in the race. You're back in doing it. And I don't know, that's so valuable. Like, surprisingly so. They had to make cuts due to disk space, you know, or cartridge space. They had to remove some tracks, you know, they couldn't have stereo sound, oh no. But that was totally worth it. This is one of the only games where I'm like, yeah, this game would have been way worse on PlayStation. N64 totally crushes it. Every aspect of this game's design is perfectly attuned for this console. It's just, this is the kind of perfect match that you don't expect, that you want to happen with game consoles that Nintendo makes, but some, they just don't, you know? The Wii U gamepad, you know, there are a few things that feel like a good fit for that, but this is like if there was like some game that made the gamepad like perfect. This is like the Mario Maker, Super Mario Maker of Nintendo 64. It's all this weird stuff, all these half-step, you know, between the modern and the classic eras of gaming, they all make sense here. And I think it's a masterpiece. Thank you for watching.